Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at Pragertopia.com. Well, hello, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. The Mondays come fast. And when I think about it, so do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, etc. I welcome you as we watch a major battle, the greatest battle since the Civil War in the United States. The visions of life are entirely polar opposites. There is nothing in common between a left and a right. Liberals and conservatives have everything in common, or virtually everything, but liberals vote for the left, and that is the reason for the calamity of our country. Liberal indoctrination, habit, weakness. That's it. Summarize in a moment, in a second. Liberals do not vote their values. U.S. agency proposes new LGBTQ advancements in foreign nations. You realize the United States is the greatest exporter of toxic ideas in the world. My beloved America. It is uniquely responsible for a moral, ethical deterioration on earth. Of course, Putin is evil. China is a terrible threat, and its government is evil. But is anybody listening to Putin's ideas? Are kids being taught Putinism? Are kids being taught support the CCP? No, but they are taught that there's no such thing as male and female. In different places throughout the world, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, I've known about this all my life, released new guidelines and recommendations for addressing and promoting LGBTQ, this is from the Daily Caller, programs in foreign nations. Some of these programs include appointing LGBTQ focal point leaders and aiming to support youth during their self-identification in quotes. USAID plays a crucial role in agenda setting, promulgating norms. This is its own language. In agenda setting, promulgating norms and precedents, and encouraging multi-sectoral investments that support LGBTQI+ inclusive development globally. You know that leftists wrote this because it's not comprehensible. I'm going to read that again. This is its guideline. USAID plays a crucial role in agenda setting, promulgating norms and precedents. Wow, I never thought of that. I'd like to start promulgating norms and precedents. Do you know, if I meet a stranger and the stranger asks me, and sir, what do you do? I will say, I promulgate norms and precedents. I like that. But we're not done. In addition to promulgating norms and precedents and encouraging multi-sectoral investments. Multi-sectoral. It comes from the word sect, I presume. So many sectors, or sector maybe, sector. It's the adjective of sector. So, for example, that was quite a sectoral book I read the other day. Couldn't put it down. Does anyone know what multi-sectoral means? Sean is out today, so I will be picking on Zach a great deal. Please understand that, ladies and gentlemen. Zach does not actually know what any of the buttons do, but he has a lot of good fortune in life. So we trust he will manipulate the proper ones. Just remember something, Zach. It's a multi-sectoral studio you're in. No, encouraging multi-sectoral investments that support LGBTQI+, inclusive development globally. So globally, that is what USAID was founded to aid countries. Now, like everything, remember, whatever the left touches, it destroys. And the left is now destroying USAID. What does the average citizen in almost any country think of the United States now? This is an open question. I'm not sure I know the answer. But people who are aware in other countries understand that intellectual idiocy, chaos is being spread by the United States of America. The USAID views pro-LGBTQ advancements as, quote, cause for cautious optimism, unquote, and claims that measures are needed to keep foreign nations from backsliding, according to the framework. Well, I opened up with a happy story for you. That is exactly what is happening. The United States is essentially alone in the modern world in being a democracy that has arrested the head of the opposition and a former president. If you want to talk about what is there, hey, I'll use their own language. The Democratic Party is promulgating norms and precedents. That's what it's doing in arresting a president. Jonathan Turley and others. Jonathan Turley is a liberal. And I'm not sure he even likes me. He called me a Judeo-Christian fascist about 15 years ago. So I'm hardly citing a pal. But he has written about the essentially the absurdity and I would add the evil of the indictment. By the way, why isn't the word, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the word insurrection in the indictment? No. So isn't that interesting? Don't they use the word, haven't they used the word since January 6th of 2021? Haven't they used that constantly? It's an insurrection. So wait, but it's not, it doesn't appear in the indictment?
I'm going to double check that. It doesn't, Trump is not charged with.
Yeah, Trump is not a charge. With the word insurrection.
Yeah.
That's, I just want to explain that. So what is he charged with? Promulgating lies? Mm-hmm. By the way, the clip you sent me that is being sent out by that left-wing hate group, Media Matters, mm-hmm. I want to send them a thank you note. Yeah. If anybody watches that, it proves that is about as clear a proof of there being nothing in common between left and right, that a left-wing organization would send out, about a 3-minute clip of me? Every word of which I'm proud of. And they send it out to show how bad I am. The best, ladies and gentlemen, I will bring to you later in the show. The best. The best is, I don't know why it happens and it's not explicable. Things get second and third lives. Like my appearance on the Bill Maher show had this massive millions and millions of extra views about 6 months ago. And now Candace Owens, History of Slavery, 5-minute video for PragerU, has had a new life. And I watched it. It was one of the most instructive videos of my life. The two, a black American and a black African, reacting to Candace Owens' history of slavery. And to their credit, listening and going, no, I can't believe this. What? Whites did not invent slavery? Why didn't anybody tell me that? We'll be back. 1-8-PRAGER 776. Gold dealers are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. What sets these companies apart, and whom can you really trust? This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion, my choice for buying precious metals. When you buy precious metals, it's imperative that you buy from a trustworthy and transparent dealer that protects your best interests. So many companies use gimmicks to take advantage of inexperienced gold and silver buyers. Be cautious of brokers offering free gold and silver, or brokers that want to sell you overpriced collectible coins, claiming they appreciate more than gold and silver. What about hidden commissions and huge markups? Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed always have your back. I trust this man. That's why I mention him by name. Nick's been in this industry over 42 years, and he's proud of providing transparency and fair pricing to build trusted relationships. If you're interested in buying or selling, call Nick Grovich and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com.
I call on you, my friend. I call on you, my friend.
The number of amazing stories that I have for you that give you an idea of what is happening in our country. New York Post. Kindergarten enrollment. It is good news. You see, I don't only bring you bad news, but I want you to understand, I don't search for good news. I admit it. I search for important news. Kindergarten enrollment rates among highest declines as families flee New York City's Department of Education reports. You saw this, right?
No.
No? New York Post. Kindergarten enrollment in that's New York City public schools is plummeting as parents reject the troubled system. Staggering 17%. That's a lot. Did you hear that number? 17% fewer kindergarten students citywide enrolled last school year than in 2016-17. The numbers dropped from 71,000 to 59,000 as of June. That is a perfect way to combat what is happening in schools. Take your kid out. You should homeschool your child. I know it sounds like climbing Mount Everest. It isn't climbing Mount Everest. And once you embark on it with the help of so many homeschooling organizations out there, your relationship with your child will improve. Your child's happiness will be increased. They will actually learn things. They won't be taught that boys and girls are interchangeable. And for that alone, you shouldn't send your kid to most schools, including most private schools. You end up with the Brown University result. What is it, 40% of students? Is that correct? Almost half of the students at Brown University identify as LGBTQIA. That is not because they were, quote unquote, born that way. It is because social convention has so changed. It went from, in the girl's case, for example, find a boy, make a boyfriend. And for the boys, make a girlfriend. Zach, find the 1950s song Where the Boys Are.
60s.
60s? Yeah? It's from the 60s? Okay, probably early 60s.
There was a movie called Where the Boys Are.
And it's from the movie Where the Boys Are?
Yeah.
See, who would I have next to me who would know that other than you? Who?
I love that movie.
You love it?
When I was a kid, I just...
No kidding.
Yeah.
Should I see it now?
No, not really. The song,
Who stars in it?
George Hamilton.
George Hamilton. Oh.
Yvette Mimieux.
Was he the Lyndon Johnson's son-in-law?
I think briefly.
Yeah, or boyfriend-in-law?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it? Yeah, this is so what year is it? What year?
1961.
61. So I said 50s. Okay. This is what people heard when I was a kid.
Where the boys are, someone waits for me. A smiling face, a warm embrace, two arms to hold me tenderly.
I have the chills. It's like playing a song from Mars.
It takes place in Fort Lauderdale.
All right, so you heard that this is, what did you say about Fort Lauderdale?
The movie takes place in Fort
The
Lauderdale.
movie is in Fort Lauderdale?
Spring break.
During spring break?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Where the boys are, someone waits for me. Someone to embrace me. If we played this at Brown University, there would be a massive exodus from the hall to safe spaces. It would be considered, I'm not joking at all, people would go to safe spaces, protest, they would attack the DJ who played it, and it would be accused of heteronormativity, which is true. That's what it is. It's heteronormativity. Who's singing that, by the way? Do you know?
Connie Francis.
Oh, that's Connie Francis.
Yeah. She's in the movie too.
It's worth playing periodically songs that are popular today. We should do that. What is it again? Billboard? Is that what lists the most popular songs? Is it still doing that? Well, somewhere you could find out most popular songs. And that was a popular song in 1961. Boys were girl crazy, girls were boy crazy. Wait, where is Get Me to the Church on Time? What year is that?
Well, that's from My Fair Lady. So.
That's from My Fair Lady. So was it the 40s?
Yeah, 40s,
Yeah,
50s.
but that was, everybody knew that song. Get me to the church on time. I'm getting married in the morning. The bells are gonna chime, and so on. I'm getting married in the morning. Get me to the church on time. You realize there are two forbidden subjects there. Singing about heterosexual marriage and mentioning the church. We don't want to upset young people with those two ideas. And they don't. We shall return. I'm Dennis Prager. So I was reading to you about the people leaving the New York City schools. And this is a very good sign. They're going mostly. It's about charter schools. It's not about homeschooling. I don't know how many have decided to homeschool. I admit to you that I am puzzled about why vast numbers of Americans who don't believe that there are more than two sexes or more than two genders send their children to a regular private or public school. Do you think your child will not be affected? Everything's been changed. That's Victor Davis Hanson's piece today in American Greatness, dissecting the dissection of our country. On a completely different note, completely different. I'm going to tell you something that, again, I am saying things that I truly never believed I would say. And here's one. Oh, man. I don't understand why they don't release the entire files on the Kennedy assassination. It's a puzzle to me. And now Biden has done the same thing. Biden's final order on the Kennedy files leaves some still wanting more. Yeah, no kidding. I'm one of them. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say to you. I was certain all of my life that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, and now there's been such a change in me because of the non-trust of my government. It's a downer when you believe your government has been taken over by corrupt people. But why wouldn't it happen? We abandoned the notion that human nature is morally troubled. I'm putting it as mildly as I can. And as a result, we have not taught people to be good, to be honest. We have not taught them that. We have taught them to follow their conscience and follow their feelings, follow their heart. So we have not raised people who know that they have to battle their nature to be good. That's the whole kit and caboodle, as they used to say. I have no idea what a kit and caboodle are, by the way. I just know the phrase. It's like a stitch in time saves nine. I have no idea what that means either. But that is the whole issue. We do not raise people to be good. We raise them to be happy. They're not happy. That's the irony. We raise them to be woke, but we don't raise them. We raise them to listen to their feelings. A sure source of moral chaos and unhappiness. And we have the unhappiest young generation, especially young women, in American history, or at least since they have recorded levels of happiness. It's really something. There's a New York Times article, and it is about how much is still unavailable to the public from the Kennedy assassination. I considered Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be a kook most of my life. I now think he's one of the most honorable men in the United States of America in public life. People throw around the word conspiracy theorist like they throw around the word white nationalist or Christian nationalist or racist. I'm reading a 600-page book on just 6 years, 1916 to 1922 in Russia. If you substituted white, just white person, for bourgeois, the slaughter of those born into the middle class, they were the enemy. In America, if you're born white, you are the enemy. Very eerie parallels. On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell at MyPillow wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on their MyPillows. You'll receive a queen-size MyPillow for $19.98. Regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products, such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, My Slippers, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of their other amazing products you had your eyes on. Go to MyPillow.com and click on the radio/podcast square and use promo code Prager to receive this amazing offer on the queen-size MyPillow for $19.98 or call 800-761-6302. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. So go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code Prager or call 800-761-6302 today. Hello, my friends. I think you will find my guest interesting, to say the least. By the way, the word interesting is interesting. People use it as a euphemism, usually for something bad. So how was your trip? Oh, interesting. It usually means it wasn't a good trip. I mean, it's worth analyzing, the word interesting. Or how about this? So what do you think of so-and-so? He's an interesting person. Usually means there's something wrong with him. But I'm using interesting in the very real sense of the term. And many of you might well be familiar with him. He is extremely widely viewed around the world. Ali London. Is it Ali or Oli?
Oli.
Always, by the way, always correct me if I make a mistake.
Sure, thank you.
Oli London, O-L-I London. The book is Gender Madness. When did it come out?
So it's actually out August 15th. So you're one of the first people in the world to get a copy, but it's coming out very soon. Yeah.
Now listen, folks, listen to the title and the subtitle. Gender Madness. One man's devastating struggle with woke ideology and his battle to protect children. Well, obviously, it's on my reading list, so I'm going to ask you a question. Is it painful for you to speak about your experience?
It is, but I feel like I need to speak about it because there are thousands of kids that are, transitioning, going through surgeries and hormones. So I think, I need to speak up for them. Mm-hmm.
At what age did you wish to transition?
So as a kid, I struggled with identity. I struggled with the way I looked, body dysmorphia. I had questions of gender dysphoria, but it wasn't until adulthood that I actually transitioned and publicly came out as trans. But
what age was that?
So that was, I believed I was trans around age 31. And then I publicly shared that with the world age 32 when I was ready to share it.
And you are now?
33. So it was quite a recent journey.
At 25, what did you feel?
At 25, I was a very confused individual. I had a lot of self-confidence issues. I lacked self-esteem, and I started undergoing surgeries to try and improve myself. And that
may I ask what sort of surgeries?
Well, I did a lot. So I did 6 nose surgeries in total, jaw surgeries, 3 eye surgeries, 3 facelifts, gynecomastia, which is male chest reduction to remove the fat, and even like a nipple surgery because I really hated the way I looked and I was bullied as a kid. So I thought, let me try to change myself to find happiness. And, obviously didn't work.
And this began at what age?
So this began at age 23. I embarked on this journey to try and change myself.
This was not an issue when you were a teenager?
It was, but I didn't start surgery and surgically changing myself.
I'm asking about the identity issue.
So it was really around puberty, so around 12 to 13 when I started to change. And when I would go to school, I was always an outcast. I was very, very feminine. When I would go swimming, the kids would tease me, that I looked like a woman, that I looked like I had breasts. And, I always used to get called insults like that. So it really made me question who I was and, think that maybe I was born in the wrong body. But I didn't act on that until adulthood.
By the way, I just want to note to my listeners that the meanness of your fellow classmates and the you don't even have to comment on this, but I just have to say this because I have been on a lifelong crusade against the idiocy that human nature is basically good. all you need to do to know how idiotic that is look at how children act. The cruelty of children is greater in most cases than the cruelty of adults. And just what they said to you and did to you is a perfect example. Now, what was your home life like?
So I had a good relationship with my mum, but my relationship with my dad was very, very strained. He was very emotionally abusive, manipulative to my mum, and he was always putting me down, making me feel worthless. You know, he tried to mold me in his image and make me become like a man like him, you know, doing camping, outdoor sports, and I just didn't want anything to do with him, so I grew close to my mum, and that's why I kind of developed more feminine traits. So I didn't want to be anything like my dad.
See, that's important. The psychological etiology, genesis of a lot of this stuff. So if you had experienced this now, let's say you were now 14, would you have taken hormone blockers?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't stand a chance now. You know, I would have instantly been referred to a doctor, probably after one consultation, put on puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapy. And that's what doctors do now. You know, after one or two consultations, these kids are pushed to transition. So I would have easily been, you know, a perfect candidate for these doctors to transition.
And that's what you're battling against.
Yeah, I think it's wrong. I think, you know, kids don't know who they are. You know, they're discovering themselves as teenagers, so they shouldn't have doctors trying to diagnose them with something and tell them the only path to happiness is to take these hormones, because it's not. Kids just are discovering themselves. They're teens, they're confused, and they're in a vulnerable state for impressionable, you know, they're very impressionable, so adults can mold them in their own image and, you know, medically transition them.
Would you say that you did transition for a year? Is that a fact?
Yes, so publicly I did. So I actually had the facial feminization surgery, so basically changing my bone structure, the way my face looked, to make it appear more feminine.
Do you regret having done that?
I do. I mean, I'm left with a lot of scars, and, you know, on my face, on my neck, and, you know, even on my chest, and I have those scars, but I think they're a reminder. They remind me every day that, you know, I've been through something and I never want to go back to that position, but it also reminds me that, you know, I have a duty now to share this experience in order to try and prevent others from going down this path that, you know, led me astray and led me to become very, very unhappy with myself.
So you did this when you were 31? So if I met you when you were 31, would you tell me you're a woman?
So I always called myself a trans woman, so I always knew the distinction between, you know, biological woman and someone that's trans is because you can't change your sex, right? So even when I was...
You knew that then?
I knew that, but I believed I was a trans woman, and I believe, you know, I was born in the wrong body, but I didn't tell people that I was a woman because I knew I wasn't born that way, right? So I wouldn't use women's spaces, but I generally believed that I was a trans woman, you know, that I changed myself and I could identify in a certain way, but I knew there was a distinction between biology and gender identity.
So I'm going to ask you a question that has haunted me and my wife, because we talk about this and between us and in the world. And I appreciate that you are okay with any question, and I'm asking this to understand, that's all. When you, first of all, when you transitioned, did you believe you were a woman?
I mean, I had different thinking back then to now. I was pretty woke in the sense that, you know, I didn't see the issues that were going on now. So I believed that I was born in the wrong body, and, you know, I felt that I had been cursed, you know, because I'd always felt more feminine. But, you know, even then I would not use women's spaces because I didn't think it was right. You know, I thought, you know, I may be born in the wrong body, but I just have to accept that I am a man, but I can look and feel like a woman and, you know, identify as a trans woman. But I did see a distinction at the time.
Which sex did you date, if you dated at all that year?
So actually, I didn't really date that year, but like men. So it was more because I always felt as a teen, you know, when I was, you know, growing up and questioning myself, I always felt like inside that I was meant to be a girl. So I was always, you know, attracted to men.
And that remains the case, presumably.
I mean, I've kind of changed. So I have dated women before. So when I was around 20 to 21, I did date women, and I am open to that idea now because, you know, I judge people at face value. So, you know, if they're loving, if they're loyal, I think that's their kind of important attributes.
Would you say you're bisexual?
Yes, I would. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you hope to marry one day?
I would like to. You know, I would like to.
Which sex would you like to marry, or doesn't it matter?
I mean, it depends on the person, but I would, you know, I would like to have a family one day. You know, I have 2 godchildren, and you know, I love kids, and I would like to have kids one day, but not ready for it right now. But you know,
with a woman or a man, or it doesn't matter.
Probably, with a woman if I had kids. Mm-hmm.
The book is Gender Madness. One man's devastating struggle with woke ideology and his battle to protect children. Well, I salute you for that. How many surgeries did you undergo?
32.
I thought you were going to say 6.
That 6 is just the nose.
I missed by 4/5. The book is up at DennisPrager.com, Gender Madness. I'm speaking to Oli London, who has led quite a life. You're now 34, is that correct?
33.
33. Mm-hmm. And as you can tell, he's from England. He's written a book coming out next week, actually, Gender Madness. And he went through transitioning, and now he is warning about this to young people. I guess anywhere they speak English.
Exactly. I'm sure, you know, someone can translate me online into other countries, but I think this is really a westernized problem because we're seeing this in the United States. We see, you know, kids transitioning in Europe, but to a much lesser degree. But I think this is more of a Western problem because we don't, you know, you don't go to China and see kids on puberty blockers or hormones because guess what? They're too busy training for the military or being patriotic and learning skills. So we see that distinction, and it is a Western cultural problem. And America is kind of the hotspot right now for all of these kids.
I'm embarrassed that is true. Mm-hmm. More toxic ideas coming from this country than any other right now. So you described your family life and your father, and you believe that this contributed to not feeling comfortable in your body. Did you think at 14, did it enter your mind, maybe I'll become a woman?
So I, you know, obviously grew up in a different time, so that was the early 2000s, so I wasn't really aware that there were possibilities to change.
So again, if your world were like our world, you probably would have.
Oh, 100% I would have. 100%. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it was a different time back then. But I questioned myself because all of my friends, the few friends I had at school were girls. And I would like, you know, playing with Barbie dolls, or I'd like the colour pink. You know, I'd like makeup. So I was always more feminine. And that's one of the reasons I did get bullied a lot. But if I grew up now, I wouldn't have stood a chance. You know, I wouldn't have been able to go for a journey on my own. I would have been told by a therapist and a doctor, you are trans, we must affirm your gender. And, you know, cut off your body parts. And it's happening to a lot of teenagers right now.
You had 30 what surgeries?
32 in total over 10 years. Mm-hmm.
How did you pay for it?
So I used to be a personal shopper, so I talk about that in the book. I used to work with a lot of celebrities and luxury brands, dressing people for events. And then I moved into, I have my own PR business, and so helping influencers, you know, get publicity and magazine covers and magazine features. And then obviously I've become social media influencer, so I was getting a lot of TikTok brand deals, Instagram brand deals, until I spoke out against this. And then I was getting cancelled by all the brands because you're not allowed to go against the narrative, right? You have to always be pushing this kind of identity stuff. So as soon as I spoke up for kids and, you know, saying this is not fair and speaking up for parents, I was suddenly cancelled, and a lot of brands actually dropped me because of that.
So how are you making a living now?
So I do a lot of things. I still do my social media. I write articles for different newspapers. I do a lot of, you know, TV news shows in the UK, talk shows as well. And I'm looking to start public speaking because I want to speak up on these issues. I think, you know, people need to hear from someone that's had this experience and hear, what they've been through to try and kind of restore some common sense.
I mean, the number of trans kids now is enormous compared to the past. What do you think is happening?
So there's a variety of factors. I mean, I would call it a social contagion because we saw, if we look at statistics, which I talk about in the book, we saw this kind of sharp increase in kids transitioning around the time of the pandemic and equally around the time that TikTok came about at the same time. So, we've seen double mastectomy, for instance. There's over 2 billion views on double mastectomies on TikTok. So that's promoting teens cutting off their breasts, basically. And it has become a social media trend. So kids that may maybe lonely at school and they don't have friends or they're being bullied, they go on social media to try and seek validation and praise. So when they see someone that is sharing their transition journey and they're getting that love and praise and validation, all kids want that because, if you're a lone kid and you're bullied, you want love, you want validation. And that's part of what I went through as well. I was, seeking validation. So, I always used to get bullied even as an adult. So I was trying to change myself to try and almost be loved. So I think social media plays a huge part. Woke education systems, when teachers are teaching kindergarten teachers, and I speak to parents all the time and they tell me, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds are in classes, they're teaching them about transgenderism and gender. You have, LGBTQI plus library books targeting kids with kind of sexualized information and gender ideology. So, it's coming from a variety of factors, but I think social media is one of the driving forces.
Can it be summarized as I am an unhappy young person and the biggest reason is I'm in the wrong body?
I think it's more we're living in a confused generation. So, teens go on TikTok or Instagram to seek validation, right? So if you get a large number of likes, it's almost affirming that you're beautiful, you're amazing. And, when kids are lacking that, they see an influencer, someone like Dylan Mulvaney, who I'm, very vocally criticizing because I think they are harming a lot of young people with their messaging. And, kids want that validation. They want the likes, they want the comments, and it gives them that serotonin hit. So I think when they see this trans trend being pushed so heavily, they think, this is a trend, this is cool. If I become trans, all my unhappiness is going to disappear. And what happens when you transition or announce your non-binary or whatever, the community around them will praise them. You're incredible, they'll affirm them. And normally these kids, they wouldn't have got any attention before, they wouldn't have got any validation. So suddenly they're being loved. You're stunning, you're brave, and they're praising these kids. So these kids are being affirmed in their new identity and pushed to, continue down this path.
What percentage of girls who have their breasts cut off come to regret it?
So most of the research is actually done by the gender clinics, so it is very biased. But I can tell you there was a study in Finland at the top gender clinic. It's called Tampere University in Helsinki, and they found around 80% plus of teens grew out of severe gender dysphoria. So these teens that were transitioned, they grew out of it into adulthood.
80%?
From this Finland study, over 80%. Mm-hmm.
The book is Gender Madness, Oli London. If you have questions, 1-8-Prager-776. I'm speaking with Oli London, who has traveled quite a distance in his life. He's 34, correct?
33.
33. And his book, again, Gender Madness. So he transitioned for a year, and he had a long period of being uncomfortable with his body. Were you uncomfortable with your body, or just uncomfortable with life, or both?
It was both. I really developed a self-hatred of myself. So, when I was a teen, I would look in the mirror and be so critical. And, I tried to make myself vomit so I wouldn't have to go to school and try to pretend to be sick because I hated myself that much and I was terrified of people's opinions of me. So it was more about, society around me.
Because you had a feminine aspect.
I was very feminine and hence I was singled out by kids and these bullies. Mm-hmm.
I understand. And as we said earlier, if this happened a few years ago when you were a teenager, you would have definitely undergone transitioning. The study you cited from Finland, 80% regret having transitioned. Is that what they said?
So the study said around over 80% of teens that have very severe gender dysphoria, that's like the most difficult. They basically were convinced that they were the opposite gender. When they became adults and went into adolescence, that disappeared and they started to live a normal life and become themselves. There's also a Canadian doctor.
Oh, so they had gender dysphoria, but they didn't necessarily transition.
Some of them were being treated, yes. So some of them at this clinic that did the study, they were
so
being treated.
But it includes both groups.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
In other words, overwhelmingly, people grow out of gender dysphoria.
Correct.
So to do anything permanent that alters their life and body is wrong.
Correct. And then, all of the studies that claim there's a very low number of detransitioners, guess what? All of these studies are conducted by the clinics that perform these surgeries.
I know.
So,
like the World, what is that? That World, what is the name of that group? The world's largest W something. Anyway, that's...
The Human Rights Campaign, maybe?
No. It's I'll get the name. But That's who they get their data from. That's who the New York Times gets its data from.
Right.
They get it from activists.
Mm-hmm. And the same with the Associated Press, which is what most media use for their news source, right? That is controlled basically by the trans activists. You have lobby groups like the Human Rights Campaign that go around to these companies and organizations and give them a DEI or corporate equality index score based on how trans inclusive they are, and they push this language that makes women the enemy, that makes parents the enemy, and that anyone that dares to question doing this to kids is suddenly a bigot and hateful. So the mainstream media is pushing this narrative.
I have no doubt that there are people listening right now whose child has just said to them, whose daughter, let's say, because it's usually a girl, she's 11, and she says, Mom, Dad, if there is a dad, Mom, Dad, I'm a boy. What should they say?
Well, I get parents messaging me every single day with this scenario, and they don't know what to do because parents just want the best for their kids, but parents need to speak to their kids and say, look, you are a teenager. Teenagers go through all sorts of different emotions and feelings. Some teenagers, they want to be a goth. Some people want to be an emo. Some people want to be a pirate, or some kids want to be a dinosaur for the day. But it doesn't mean we go around, chopping their body parts off to affirm that identity. So I think, parents just need to speak to their kids and say, look, everything that you're feeling right now is mostly because you're a teenager going through puberty. Things always get better. And also parents need to be aware of what is being taught in schools because, I know a lot of parents, kindergartens, 5-year-olds, 6-years-olds, they're coming back from school telling, Mum, I was taught today about this thing that I can change my gender, I can be trans, So parents need to really see what's going on at schools and on social media and keep a track of that because, kids are being influenced by that, So that's a very important thing to look out for.
It certainly is. Folks, it's August, and it's fundraising month because my birthday is in August. That's why we picked it. As of this week, whatever you give is doubled. Some donors have made sure that they would double anything you give. If you're worried about America and the West, we're one of the best investments you can make. PragerU.com, 833-PRAGER-U. Again, whatever you give will be doubled. I'm speaking with Oli London. His book, Gender Madness, is up at DennisPrager.com. The phone number for this is 1-8-PRAGER-776.
Great clouds, or white walls, or blue skies, we gonna fly, feel alright. Somebody help me feel alright tonight.
My guest is not used to commercials on the BBC. I remember my 1 year in England, all I thought when I listened to the radio was, wow, they don't interrupt the show. Of course, that's why they don't have talk radio. See, that's the point. So if you want the BBC alone, you don't pay for it. Well, you pay in your taxes, but You don't pay for it through ads. Only London, who is from England. Gender madness. He's gone through this and has written about it and now warns young people about it, to his great credit. Did you lose friends as a result of this?
I've lost a lot of friends. I actually lost one of my best friends that I've been friends with for 10 years. And basically, they called me transphobic. And, I'm not transphobic. I'm not anything phobic. I'm just speaking facts that, don't do this to kids. I want to speak up for parents. And I think, women's spaces should also be respected. So, for instance, women's sports, you cannot have a biological male that has an advantage in a women's category. So, I've spoken up about that and I've lost a lot of friends. I'm actually blacklisted from certain places in the UK, like in restaurants and bars, because the UK is becoming very woke and I cannot physically eat in certain restaurants. And I don't drink alcohol.
That's worse than America.
I know.
We don't have that. We have that.
And I'm actually on a list. Some of these.
There are restaurants like that.
Yeah, and some, I don't drink alcohol, but some bars, my friends go to these bars and I am actually on a list and I don't even go to these bars. And just because of my views.
This is a good example. If there were talk radio in Britain like this, we would announce the names of those bars, and then they would be picketed. See, you don't have that though. There's no vehicle like that. We have one. It's called talk radio. We have the most woke and the most anti-woke. The battle for civilization is taking place largely in America. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the UK, look, the majority of people are against transitioning kids and about respecting women, but they don't speak up about it. They're silent because they're scared, because they see the hate campaigns against people like J.K. Rowling or Helen Joyce that simply speak up for facts, that men cannot menstruate, men cannot get pregnant, just a fact. And they get severe hate campaigns and death threats every day. So when people see that, they are scared to speak out. But I think that's why what I'm doing, I'm not scared to speak up, because I think I need to open that doorway to help other people get that courage to speak up, because at the end of the day, this is happening to kids. Women are losing their spaces and their rights in sports, in restrooms, in spas, and it's not right. So I think in the UK, the general consensus, most people are against all of this woke stuff, but they're very fearful of speaking out instead of getting cancelled. But America is, of course, the issues are more extreme here, but you do have a big movement that is against all this, and a big movement that has the courage to speak out against it.
That's right. It's they're both happening here. I'm curious. Do you look at your life as having been more difficult than most people's lives?
To be honest, now I actually count my blessings every day. So I'm very grateful when I wake up. I realise, I'm happy to still be here, because I could have easily died during these operations, because the more times you go under anaesthetic, the more risks you put your body through. So you have an increase. 32. So you have an increased risk of.
Okay. Wait. I interrupted you because I have a question, and then I'm going to go back to how you look at your life. Did any of these doctors, like at surgery number 25, ever say to you, Oli, maybe you shouldn't be doing this?
I had doctors in the UK that say that, so that's why I didn't get any surgeries in the UK. And, at the time I was in that mindset that I will do this no matter what people say. Whoever tries to stop me, I was dead set on it. So I actually went to countries like Armenia or Turkey where the doctors were just wanted money, right? So they don't check the psychologist appointment or anything. It's literally a fast track. Some of them I found on Instagram.
Oh, that's interesting. That's where you went, Armenia and Turkey?
I've had surgery in China as well and in Korea, but I went to countries where the standards, the hospitals were good in some cases, but the standards for the appointments, it was easy to be fast tracked and just get the surgery without all the questions.
I'm glad I asked that question. Back to your life. You're grateful every day. Grateful for what exactly?
Well, I'm just grateful to still be here, but I'm also, I feel grateful that I've been able to have that clarity in my life, which I didn't have for the vast majority of my life, and actually have some perspective that, I've been through these things. it was bad, and I'm glad I've got through it, but I need to learn from these things. So every scar I have on my face is a lesson that I've learned.
To be honest, I don't see any scars on your face.
I've got a little bit of foundation, but this, you see this white thing here? That's a hairline lowering surgery for the facial feminization. I have scarring.
Wait, you had a hairline lowering surgery?
I had all sorts of weird surgeries. You know, I had my eyebrow bone shaved.
I know each word, but I don't understand what you're saying. So that your hair would go further down your forehead?
Correct. So when I did...
They can do that?
They can do anything. Yeah, they can really do anything. And that was part of the facial feminization.
Alan, have you considered one?
They can do anything these days. Yeah.
And you had that?
Yes.
I mean, I have to admit, 32 plastic surgeries is... So give me another example of one.
So actually, when I did the facial feminization, I had 11 procedures in one day. So, I went under knife and I basically changed everything. So I had 2 chin surgeries. I actually have titanium screws in my chin to keep it in place. In my cheeks, I have titanium screws because I had my cheekbones shaved to make it more soft and feminine. The jaw, I actually had a jaw surgery and I wasn't able to speak or eat properly for 2 weeks. I was on a liquid diet and I put myself through hell, and it was almost a form of self-harm at the time, because I was so struggling with my identity and mental health, and it was a form of self-harm, and I'm just thankful that I've overcome that now.
Wow. Well, his story and his outlook are all contained in Gender Madness, the book. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Oli London, you're doing important work. Try to take some calls. You're listening to The Dennis Prager Show. Hello, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager, and I hope you had a good weekend. I just had a guy who transitioned and regretted it. What a life he has lived. God, the amount of luck in life is painful. Religious people are not happy when I say that, and I totally understand that. So what is my choice? To believe that God willed this kid in London? He's now a 33-year-old, but when he was a kid, to have a father who mocked him and that he had feminine traits and other kids mocked him. So he wasn't sure what he was. Boy, girl, got 32 surgeries. His titanium in his chin and his cheeks to look more feminine. What's my line? If pain were water, the world would drown. You should really count your blessings, folks. Who was this? Helen Joyce? Was she making the point about this built-in constituency now? Yeah. It's an interesting and totally accurate point. There is now a growing constituency of fervent true believers. It's somewhat redundant. A true believer, by definition, is fervent, but nevertheless, I use the term. These fervent true believers in trans, because they have encouraged their child, mostly out of fear of the child's reaction if they didn't go along. They have gone along with their child's transition. And even if the child detransitions, they are often, what are they going to say? We ruined you, kid? Yeah, honey, we got the surgeon to take your breasts off. Where was I just reading? Oh my God, I was just reading an article. Maybe you're familiar with it. Someone who was preparing to get top surgery, to be a boy, to be a man. I don't know, okay. It is mind-boggling. It is we live in a sick, sick, sick age. Madness has taken over. That a woman is on the internet just counting the days till she can have her breasts removed. Somebody wrote recently about women who've had double mastectomies because they had cancer, breast cancer, and how they must feel. You have healthy breasts, and you're going to do that? God, it's a pathology that we have not seen maybe since the Salem witch trials, which were far, far less spread than this. I wonder if you've heard about the gay black man in was it Brooklyn? Or was it what part of New York was this? The Bronx? Doesn't matter really. But yeah, it was in Brooklyn, and he was stabbed to death. Black gay man. And it was reported, but there's so many murders in New York, how many can you report? But it was barely reported in the mainstream press that it was a Muslim who did it. So here is Douglas Murray, the great thinker, and he is a great thinker. Was it The War Against the West? Is that his book? And I've had him on. He's done PragerU videos, and he loves Bruckner, which means little to most of you, but a lot to me. It is strange that O'Shea Sibley, that was the gay black, or black gay. Which do you use, black gay or gay black? That O'Shea Sibley's killing has not had more attention. Every life matters, but Sibley happened to be black and gay. Normally, either of these things, let alone both, would attract serious attention from the media and campaign groups. Yet while the killing was widely reported as a hate crime, it is the wrong sort of hate crime, one that doesn't fit the dominant enforced narrative of our time. Had the group who confronted Sibley and his friends been white and shouted that they didn't like gay people or black people, this country would be in meltdown right now. Every presidential candidate would be condemning it. All the community groups who make a profession out of campaigning against hate, quote unquote, would be in full fundraising mode. The New York Times would have cleared the pages for days of reflections on what this said about America. But that's not what happened. It's from the New York Post. Here's what happened according to the people who were there. One of the friends who was with Sibley when he was murdered posted a photo on social media of the bloodied sidewalk and wrote, "They hated us because we are gay," screaming, "We Muslim and we don't like gays," as we are innocently pumping gas and y'all decided to stab one of us. Hashtag justice. Perhaps the media were simply cautious about reporting this, given that it was only one eyewitness. Yet there was a second witness who was spoken to a local website. An employee at the gas station said that the flamboyant behavior of Sibley and his friends offended the other group because the other group were Muslims. Here's what the gas station employee said. These people were like, "We're Muslims. I don't want you dancing." The gay people, they were not trying to fight. Yet these facts don't fit the narrative. The victim was gay and black. The perpetrators were Muslim. Just like, by the way, at the, was it Orlando bar years ago, the gay bar? It was a Muslim who did it. How many people know that? Our era is obsessed with hate crimes, so much so that it seems that in places, them in places, there must be a typo here. It seems that in places where they don't even happen. Yet last Saturday in Brooklyn was a hate crime, and the media are actually covering it up. All because Sibley's assailants were not hood-wearing members of the KKK or MAGA hat-wearing Republicans. Instead, they come from another group that our media identifies as a victim class. The fact that the men were Muslim is why the media has been actively dishonest in reporting. Despite the story going around the world, the New York Times has written about the case, but it has not bothered to inform its readers of why Sibley bled out on a Brooklyn sidewalk. Had the Times had even a whiff of this being a white-on-gay hate crime, they wouldn't have waited for one eyewitness, let alone two. They would have told all. This is about the New York Times, the Pravda of our time. They would have told all, speculated about everything, and asked what this said about this country and everyone in it. But because the identity and motive of the perpetrators are an awkward glitch in that paper's big narrative, the Times simply covered over the facts. The Guardian went one worse. That paper quoted Sibley's friend, who I quoted above, but they actually edited out the detail about the attackers being Muslim. The Guardian. Truth is not a left-wing value. Period. This is an incredible story of a black gay guy stabbed to death at a Brooklyn gas station. And the mainstream media don't report that it was Muslims who did it, and Muslims who hated gays. I'm not telling you that all Muslims hate gays. I'm telling you this is about the media. This is not about Muslims. Okay? Just want to make that clear. Can you imagine if white MAGA hat wearers had murdered this black gay guy? We would have international attention paid. New York Times, what did I say? Didn't even mention it? Is that right, that they were Muslim? Is that what he said about the Times? Let's see. The Times simply covered over the facts. This is Douglas Murray, one of the leading writers of our time in the New York Post. Now listen. Again, I'm telling you, this was all news to me. The Guardian, it's major British left-wing paper, big site for news. They quoted Sibley's friend, who I quoted, that is I, Douglas Murray, the author of this piece. Sibley is the one murdered. But they actually edited out the detail about the attackers being Muslims and the words they used. Oh, God. What do you think of that, my friends? That's really something. The most that newspaper could bring itself to say was that an eyewitness said the perpetrators mentioned, quote, defending the religious beliefs. Their religious beliefs. I can't believe it. They didn't say what religion their religious beliefs were, so it leads you to think it's Christians who did it. Apparently dancing to Beyoncé can be an assault on some people's religious beliefs. But whose? The Guardian wouldn't tell you. It is happy to leave its readers with the impression that white Christian rednecks or Orthodox Jews might have carried out the killing. That's the Guardian. I don't know why this does not delegitimize the Guardian. Why this alone doesn't do that. Shamefully, this is really... And by the way, Douglas Murray is gay, just for the record. Shamefully, the gay press has done the same. In their usual betrayal of the people they claim to speak for, I want to dwell on that for one moment. This is a very important point. Left-wing activist groups use people to push their left-wing agenda. The gay activists use gays. The black activists use blacks. And that's the way it works. The women's activists use women. Communists use workers. That's the way it works. And the vast majority of those people go right along with it. Did any black groups say defund the police? If a black group said defund the police, or a black group is against school choice, how is it exactly pro-black? Shamefully, the gay press has done the same. In their usual betrayal of the people they claim to speak for, gay rights groups have reacted to the story by helping to cover it up. Some gay groups have even tried to link the killing to recent debates about transgender issues. What does that have to do with anything? Ignoring the fact that the men at the Brooklyn gas station seem to have been more influenced by the views of the founder of Islam than the governor of California. Wow. Obviously, such false reporting is another reason why so many people don't trust the media these days. But this cover-up also displays an appalling cowardice, because we should be able to look facts in the face, but that's not true. Because truth is not a left-wing value, how could they possibly look facts in the face? Nobody should be murdered because of who they are, but nor should a murderer be given cover because of who they are. That's right. America shouldn't be divided by groups, and evil shouldn't be divided by groups either. Anybody might be a victim of hate, and anyone from any group, even a minority, might be a perpetrator. Ponder that, and we'll do this one victim at least a fragment of the justice he deserves. That's a good one. Good piece. Douglas Murray. Yeah. The educational process and mainstream media have lied so much that they have to cover up their lie. If a guy cheats on his wife, he can't tell one lie. There's no such thing as one lie. When you cover up, you have to do more. The lie that all whites are racist is a lie, and you have to then lie constantly, like The Guardian and the death of a gay black man.
Stay by my side, and you kept on the lights, and you knew just what to say.
My favorite part of August is the fundraising aspect for PragerU, not the fundraising itself, but having young members of Prager Force. That's the PragerU Young People's Organization on the show. And it gives you real hope for the future when you meet these people. So here's Kate Klein. She's entering her senior year at college. She's active in TPUSA as well as PragerU. And Kate, pleasure to meet you again, because apparently we've met.
Yes, we have. I've met you at a few of the last conferences, and I was actually at the Shutdown LA, at one of the first Shutdown LA rallies, and I met you there.
You went to that at City Hall?
I was. Yes, I was there. I met you and Will Witt there.
Wow. So which was more exciting, Will or me? You don't have to answer that. I just love
I was pretty young, so it was nice to be. It was my first really experience with politics, so it was amazing to get to hear you guys.
Well, I'm telling you, I remember that rally really well. It was in the heaviest part of the lockdown, and we gathered maskless, and I hugged as many people as possible, which drove the left crazy. They mocked me because I wasn't afraid of COVID, and I never got vaccinated, and I thought it was evil to shut down businesses. There weren't many young people there. I salute you.
Thank you. It was really neat to be able to listen to everything, especially because I'm actually in high school, but as I was going into community college, all of the community colleges in California were requiring vaccination, so I was constantly surrounded by the constant fear of COVID. And it was nice just to be able to listen to other people who had the same beliefs as me outside of my family. And
how did you even know about the rally?
I believe we found out about it on Facebook.
Oh, very interesting. By the way, then, did you ever get vaccinated?
I did not. We were able to find some sort of loopholes, and I did all of my college classes online, and I did some out of state, so I was able to get around that.
And what's the story now? Can you go to class now?
So yes, now a lot of them have repealed, but I'm still doing most of my classes online, and but I can go in person. But I also go to my school. Luckily, never required them. So,
do you want to say the name, or rather not?
Yeah. So I was looking mostly at Saddleback College or IBC or Vine Valley College, and those were the ones that were requiring it. But I go to a homeschool learning center called Pacific Coast Learning Center, and throughout the entirety of COVID, they never required masks.
Yeah, I would think that. So it says on your bio that you're Jewish, and you're conservative, and you're female. Do you understand that you are as rare as a three-legged horse?
Absolutely. I met somebody else at a recent conference that was also young Jewish and female and conservative, and I was like, you are one of the very few people I've ever met. I have a running tally of how many I've met.
That's funny.
It's definitely daunting.
Yes, it's like a collection of rare coins.
Exactly.
So, so were you raised conservative?
I was raised very much with the ideas of I was given the facts, and I was told these are the facts, and think of it what you will. And eventually, as I started to grow older, that really inspired my passion for debate. So I kind of became conservative because I had the facts, and I was able to discuss with my parents from a really young age, just around the dinner table. We would always discuss.
Well, the moment they say, here are the facts, or find the facts, it's a giveaway, it's conservative. Because and I mean that literally, because leftism is follow your heart, not follow the facts.
Exactly, and the facts are what is so necessary for a society to actually be educated.
So, what's your theory on why there are so few conservative Jews your age?
I think it's because you have a lot of youth groups and a lot of temples around the nation are just very liberal. And so because they kind of just pass it on. I went to my first youth group that I ever went to. I was serving on the board. And our first meeting, we all sat down, and they asked us to go around and share our pronouns. That was the first thing they said to us at the Jewish youth group. And so I think it's...
OMG.
Yes, and that was back in 2021.
I'm blown away. Did anybody have anything other than what they appeared?
Oh, yes. There was quite a few people like that. So I think
There were quite a few who said they?
Yes.
Really?
And so
Oh,
they
God,
were-
is that sad?
It is, and it makes me sad for the Jewish religion that there's so many of us that believe that. And
Wow. Are you dating?
I am not.
Why?
I am very strong in dating a Jewish person mostly, or for now. And it's been very hard to find a Jewish conservative out there. So,
That's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised the answer was no.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's just sad.
It is, and it's like I would be absolutely willing to discuss someone who's wanting to, I would absolutely be willing to debate someone who's willing to discuss and date someone who's willing to discuss. But unfortunately, a lot of people on the other side aren't willing to discuss.
How did you discover PragerU?
I discovered PragerU from a very young age. My grandparents were involved in it, and they had always been watching all the videos, and they kind of shared it with me from a very young age. I just grew up watching the videos.
Oh, how nice. I ask almost every guest in August, do you have a favorite PragerU video?
I would absolutely say, well, the one I watched, I think it was one of my first videos, is one of the 5-minute videos that was describing the difference between liberalism and leftism, because that's something
that's
so many
mine.
people don't know.
That's a Dennis video.
Yes.
Yes, that's very important, isn't it?
Important to realize that.
Yes. If liberals realized it, the country would be fine.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Absolutely. The classic liberals they want to discuss and they want to learn, and I agree with a lot of their ideas. Not all of them, but I agree with a lot of them. And it's the issue of leftism and people not realizing the difference and calling everybody a liberal, which is not what it is, because then it gets confusing for the people who are actual liberals.
well, you're a joy, and I hope we'll meet again. I really do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. These are special young people. No question about it. Well, help us make millions more of them. Tomorrow I'm going to play for you videos of young blacks watching Candace Owens on PragerU on slavery, and you will see their minds change. That's what we do. We need your help. PragerU.com or call 833-PragerU. Or is it 822? 833. 833, yeah. Dennis Prager here. Thanks for listening to the Daily Dennis Prager Podcast. To hear the entire 3 hours of my radio show, commercial-free, every single day, become a member of Pragertopia. You'll also get access to 15 years' worth of archives, as well as the daily show prep. Subscribe at Pragertopia.com.